And welcome back. Back-to-back shows, Dynasty Evaluation. We got some studs here. We got some Hutchinson Brown, the Eagles fan, watching his guys go to Super Bowl. I can't say the same about my Buffalo Bills. I'm not getting my Josh Allen. I'm not a big – I would call myself not a Buffalo Bills fan, but a Josh Allen fan. But we got a guy here who's happy his team's going to Super Bowl, and that's all you can ask for. So we are getting ready to talk about the rookie spotlights here. Hutchinson Brown, I asked him, who does he want to talk about? He said Ja'Cory Brooks from Louisville. So when we get back, we are going to talk about Ja'Cory Brooks from Louisville. Let's go.
McGlynn is in. I repeat, McGlynn is in. Let the fun begin. This is the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with your host, John McGlynn.
Was that Herms?
He got them guests on the Rolodex, stopping by to talk about some Dynasty Superflex. Everybody, yo, commish is in. It's time to sit down to listen to John McGlynn. Yo, who we trading, who we fading, who we getting off the squad. Knowledge never overrated, playing for number one. And yo, McGlynn is in. It's time to let the fun begin. It's the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with John McGlynn.
It's actually a Dynasty Evaluation Podcast now because I do a little too much commissioner stuff. But yeah, we changed it. I'll get that song fixed. But either way,
John, I was like, you were like, should I play the commish song or should I play the Dynasty song? I was like, I love the commish song. Let's go old school. I love it. It's Dynasty Evaluation, but damn it, that's a great song. So
that is a great song. That is a great song.
It's pretty good, guys. I was very impressed.
At least somebody's happy here in this arena here. We got an Eagles fan here watching his boys go to Super Bowl again. I thought for sure it was going to be the Eagles versus the Lions. I think all of America wanted that matchup, and everybody wanted the Lions and the Bills in the Super Bowl. And didn't have. At least the Eagles are going for you. So Saquon is just unreal, man. It's when he got to this team, I traded for him a bunch of fantasy leagues. People said, "Oh, he'll be okay." And to trade what I traded for to get him in some leagues, I was super happy. And man, it couldn't have turned out any better on a fantasy football level. And I don't see it stopping anytime soon. So, how are you feeling right now as an Eagles fan?
Oh, man, I'm feeling fantastic. And to what you were saying, John, I mean, in Dynasty Leagues, I remember before the season started, Saquon was going for like late firsts, like just one late first. I remember like that's the kind of prices you were getting from in Dynasty. I was pretty in on Saquon this offseason. I wasn't worried about the Hurts tush push that everyone was pushing. I was pretty in on Saquon. I had him ranked as like a top 3 running back. But this is something you couldn't have expected and projected. This is unbelievable. This is a phenomenal season. And I'm happy the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Obviously happy Saquon's going to be able to play in the Super Bowl on his birthday. That'll be quite fun. That'll be a good narrative to tag along. Hopefully he gets a touchdown on his birthday. Hopefully they get a win for him on his birthday. But I'm also excited about Jalen Hurts, man. He's looked definitely inconsistent this year for sure, but I'm impressed in what he did against Washington. He made some really great throws. He threw it away when he had to. Did he take some unnecessary sacks? Yeah. But hey, Eagles put up a 50 burger and Hurts threw for about, I think it was just over 250 yards. So I'm feeling pretty good about where we're at heading to KC.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is what I traded for in the beginning of the season. I traded away a 25 first, which is mine. I won the league, so it's 112. Excuse me. Then I traded away Zamir White, a late 25 third, a late 25 fourth, my 25 second, which would be 224, and a late 25 third from somebody else that was also in the playoffs with me. So I almost got it for free.
Yeah, so very late first, very late second, and then a bunch of nothing. Like basically nothing.
I mean, I like late picks. I always think that I'm, prepared for them 3rd and 4th and 5th round rookie draft picks, and I end up clogging a lot of roster cloggers on there. But every once in a while, man, bam. Me and JT especially, he loves them 3rd, 4th, and 5th round picks. He is a hog.
I know everybody says the 3rd round picks are worthless, but dude, I've hit on so many 3rd round picks.
They're pretty
like guys that are like solid that like give me really nice like production as a flex play. So I like it. But I was all in on Saquon. I was trading him last year, like before he was on the Eagles, just because I was like, people were down on him and the Giants sucked. And I was like, I don't think he's going to be on the Giants. So I was trading him for like scraps, literally, because people were like, he's done. The Giants suck. I was like, give him to me. Like in leagues where I didn't have like a second good running back, I traded for him. It worked out well, man. I'm so pumped for Barkley, man. So underrated. He's just gotten screwed so much of his career, just the injuries and being on bad teams. And now we're seeing like, you put a player with that talent on a good team with a good O-line, you see how ridiculous he can be. So I'm super pumped for Saquon and what he's been able to do. So
I hope my mom doesn't listen to this, but I am rooting for the Eagles, and I want Saquon to win a ring just out of this. So my mom is I bought her a Patrick Mahomes jersey for Christmas this year, so she's a huge Mahomes fan. Always has been. She loves that dude. I want Saquon to get a ring and just go kiss his wife and kids after the game and say, "This is why I did it. This is why I left you. This is what happens." So he deserves it, man, for sure, absolutely.
I'm fully in the Eagles too on this one, John. I'm going to be putting quite a bit of money on the Eagles this week. The Bills got me last week. I'm hard on the Bills. The Eagles came through on my bets. I'm going Eagles again.
Who would have thought? Do you ever think in your life you'd ever be rooting for the Eagles to do anything besides lose? Never.
Here's the thing: is as a kid, I actually really liked the Eagles. I rooted for them. They were like kind of a secondary team because I loved Randall Cunningham. Randall Cunningham was like my guy when I was a kid. I just loved Randall Cunningham. And then when they knew that defense, and then they had Reggie White, and then when they traded for Herschel Walker, I know it was like on the down spiral of Herschel Walker. I was like, Herschel Walker and Randall Cunningham. I loved Randall Cunningham. Tecmo Bowl, Tecmo Super Bowl. I play with the Eagles all the time. I've got a season going right now on Tecmo Super Bowl with the Eagles because I love him. So I've always been like a closeted Eagles fan because I just loving those guys. And, when Michael Vick came back and absolutely crushed for the Eagles, I took him everywhere in fantasy that year. People were like, what are you doing? He's not even the starter. I took him in like 1 QB leagues and people thought I was insane. They're like, why are you taking a backup in a 1 QB fantasy league that's not Dynasty? And I'm like, he's going to be awesome. And you know what? I won every one of those leagues that year that I took Michael Vick. So I get a lot of love for the Eagles. A lot of love for the Eagles.
There you go. Chris Joel Smith. Woo! Love it.
He's back, baby. Chris is back.
The show wouldn't be the same without Chris Joel Smith chiming in. Much appreciated. So, Brandon Holland, Giants GM and owner, are watching the Empire State Building get lit up on Eagles colors. Oh, yeah. Yep. McNabb, fun fact. McNabb was backup quarterback at Mount Carmel High School. We played against him when I was in grammar school. Going against Simeon Rice and all the guys.
Really?
We had to watch Chris Callaway and all these other NFL players on the. Yeah, just real quick. We played Mount Carmel. We didn't score. We were in the playoffs. We gave up like probably 10 points the entire season. We played Mount Carmel. McNabb was backup quarterback because this kid Mike McGrew was a senior and he was really good too. They ran a really good like option double wing offense kind of. It was just run the clock out, hold the ball, score, drive it down your throat. Simeon Rice from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers I had to go head to head versus him. It was just their team was just absolutely awesome. We gave up 10 points. They were the 8th game in a row in our season. They beat us 47-0. We have 10 points the entire season versus all the Chicago Catholic League teams like San Rito. You don't know these teams, but they were actually just an absolute juggernaut. They won 4 straight state championships in Illinois, and in the highest class that we have, and they were just steamrolled everybody. It was there. I mean, the team is just filled with NFL coaches at this point. NFL players on that team, so it's almost unfair.
Well, John, I was going to say after. I'm glad Chris brought up McNabb, another one of my favorite guys from Illinois. I went to Syracuse. He went to Syracuse. Some Syracuse guys too. So I love Donovan McNabb. So again, another one of my Eagles connections of a player I always root for when he was there. So that's great.
Absolutely. So what we can talk about today is we're doing these rookie spotlights. These players, rookies coming into the 2025 draft. I said, hey, can you pick someone outside the top 4 or 5 to spotlight? And you came back with Ja'Cory Brooks from Louisville. I like this guy, so I'm glad you picked him. And I know I gave you a show sheet. You filled it out like you went ham on it. Absolutely awesome. So I'm gonna let you do a lot of the talking here because you did a lot of prep. This is absolutely fantastic. So give me a little tidbit about Ja'Cory Brooks. What do you know about his size, his speed, all that kind of his age, all that kind of stuff?
So yeah, Ja'Cory Brooks, Louisville. He's played 4 years in college. He started in Alabama. He was a 5-star recruit out of high school in Florida, and then he went to Alabama, played a couple years, and then it was his junior year that was taken away with a shoulder injury because his freshman year he had 15 catches, not much, but then his sophomore year he had 674 yards, 8 touchdowns, started to show some promise, made some really big plays, especially. There was a play with Bryce Young where they were, I believe it was the Iron Bowl. Is that what it's called, right? I think it was the Iron Bowl in 2020. 2021, and it was a 3rd and 10 play. They needed to tie Auburn to go to overtime with a touchdown, and Bryce Young just tucks it 30 yards downfield. And this kid, Brooks, makes a fantastic catch for a touchdown to send them to overtime. Clutch play. But then in his junior year, he has a major shoulder injury very early, cuts the season very short. And the answer to the transfer portal goes to Louisville for a bigger opportunity because Alabama's got a lot of talent, a lot of players on their team that can make plays. So he wanted to go to a bit of a smaller school so he had more opportunity. And this kid came through, man. I mean, he's 6'3", 195 pounds. As I said, he's a senior, played 1 year, Louisville. He had 1,000+ yards within his last season. And yeah, man, I'm really, really excited for what this kid is going to do. I think he's a bit underrated. I think he'll test well, and he could be a riser for people. I've seen him talk a little bit about as a riser as the offseason will go on. I've seen him talk about as a guy that could sneak into day 2, but right now he's still being talked about as day 3. And I think he should be going in day 2.
Yeah, 4.65 for that, but a guy that big, that you don't expect him to run a 4.3 or 4.4, but 4.65 is a little concerning, but not crazy concerning. So I get it. JT, chime in a little bit from just what Hutch said. Kind of, what do you think so far? Just initial thoughts on Ja'Cory Brooks.
Yeah, I think the 4.65, like you said, is going to scare some people away because it's like, oh man, how's he ever going to win at 4.65? Dude, watch some of the tape. Watch this guy in college. He's good. He's good, and we've seen it. And again, having the elite athletic traits makes a difference. But how many players have we seen that were like unbelievable players? They just didn't have that top end speed or the exact perfect height, or and still really good. I always tell you, like, just now imagine going back and looking at like Larry Fitzgerald, and now with everything that's going on with podcasts and Twitter and everything on, just think about people like, people all of a sudden being down on him because he ran a slow 40 and being like, I think I might be out on Larry Fitzgerald. Out on Larry Fitzgerald? What are you talking? Not a speed demon. The dude knows how to play wide receiver. That's why I think Ja'Cory Brooks. I mean, I'm sorry, but you're not a 5-star for nothing. Like coming out of high school, they don't just throw 5 stars around. Like you are a solid player. Now, some guys never make it because of circumstances and it doesn't work out, but you're not just a 5-star because you're just, that doesn't happen, man. So I think I was really impressed at what he did at Louisville this year. To me, that jumped him up in my mind because people are like, oh, you're good, but you're on a good team with a ton of other good players. Like, so of course you're going to be good. I think he really showed out at Louisville this year. I had him on a number of C2C and CFF teams, and he was really good for me. I liked him a lot. This is an interesting wide receiver group because it's not super deep, and he's that X spot, and we talk about this sometimes. Like people are like, oh, this guy, and a lot of people don't look at where these guys play all the time. There's not a ton of X's with good size that come out all the time. And that's where I think I was a guy that I really liked A.T. Perry coming out as like a sleeper late because I thought he was not quite as fast, but good production. I think Ja'Cory Brooks is a much better A.T. Perry. Like, I think that's where you're going to see him. So I think this is a guy you're going to see him drafted probably a little later than people might like fantasy wise, but to me, that's not going to turn me off on taking him. I think he's going to be really solid. I like the catch radius. I like what he does. He knows how to play wideout. He knows that he's not going to burn you all the time, but he knows how to use his body, his speed, technique to win, as opposed to a guy who's like, I know I'm faster than you. I'm just going to run by you.
Yeah, absolutely. Wendy Early, what's up, fellas? My girl Wendy, woman of fantasy football, the Wolf. Awesome setup you got there. Me and Wendy were teammates on a Dynasty, her first Dynasty league. It was absolutely terrible. We drafted terrible. After like a year or two, I think the league may have folded. I'm not sure. She wants nothing to do with Dynasty. She likes redraft stuff that, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm more of a Dynasty cat, but Wendy, thanks for putting up with me in that draft because I think we drafted everybody that was rated high and did low, and didn't produce at all. So maybe her entrance to Dynasty with me, and I put sour taste in her mouth, but I don't know. It was Wendy. Well, Wendy's awesome. Wendy's super funny. She bought me a Bucky Christmas ornament for our front lawn, like a 6-foot Bucky, and sent it to our house. So she's awesome. Love her to death. But Hutch, so Ja'Cory Brooks, tell me the good you saw on YouTube, on paper, all the stuff, all the good stuff you saw about Ja'Cory Brooks. Why did you pick him today to be the spotlight player? Is it something caught your eye with this player that made you think, man, I like this dude? What was it? Tell me all about it.
Yeah, talk about the positive sides. We can start, when I go in breaking down players, I like to do, you set it up this way at the show doc, but I like to go first on film, watch the player play football, see what he does, see some things I like and dislike, and then also go to the analytics side of it, look at the numbers. I feel like a lot of people are one way or another with these things. A lot of people like to go one way or the other. I think a good mix of both is a really, really good idea. It gives you a lot of perspective from both sides. So starting with the film, I think for a 6'3", 195-pound receiver, usually when you see a guy that's that tall, you can see straight line speed. You don't necessarily see shiftiness. I think he's unexpectedly shifty for a 6'3" guy. There's a lot of times where he had the football in his hands. He was used in the screen game a lot in Louisville. They kept giving him screens and short plays and letting him run with the football. And there were a lot of times where there was a defender in front of him, and I thought, it was going to be easy. The defender was going to come right at him, and all of a sudden he makes a cut off one leg, and it's just like, wow, and he's gone. And for a 6'3" guy, it's just like, oh my goodness, that's nasty. I loved seeing that unexpected shiftiness from him. I expect to see that at the combine, the things like the 3-cone drill, the first 10 yards, the 10-yard shuttle, like those kind of things. I expect to see that kind of explosiveness from him. And another thing that I really like about him on film, you could see how concentrated he is at the catch point. He's never, and we saw this, I remember specifically seeing this in just this last playoff game, Travis Kelce, he was about to catch a screen pass, and he had his hands up, the ball was just about to touch his hands, and he looked away. He looked the other way to go run because he was like, I got this catch, I'm going to go run. This is not a thing Ja'Cory Brooks does, man. He concentrates at the catch point at an elite level. It doesn't matter if there's a defender under him, over him, next to him, or draped on top of him. He's going to catch the football. He had a couple of drops, easy ones, but when there's a defender on him and there's a contested catch situation, he is a monster. He is so unstoppable when it comes to contested catch situations. If that ball touches his hands, it's very likely going to be a reception. Those are two things on film that I would like to see. And now more towards the analytical side. 6'3", 195 pounds. We love that size. But the long wingspan is impressive as well. You can see it on film when he reaches up to get a ball. That dude's got long arms. When you look at percentile, he's in the 85th plus percentile in terms of his wingspan for most things I see. When you look at his contested catch percentage as well, I was talking about contested catches earlier. He's at a 69.8%. That's almost a 70% contested catch percentage. Usually you talk about contested catches like a 50-50 ball downfield, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about that as well, but also over the middle in short situations where there's a defender draped on him. If he's not getting enough separation, there's a defender there. That's a contested catch. He makes those tough catches on third downs to convert first downs on a very regular basis. And another thing I love is his yards per catch. He makes plays downfield, and you see it, 17.2 and 16.6 yards per catch in his sophomore and senior seasons. Remember, I don't include the junior year because junior year he was ruled out with that shoulder injury a lot. And one last thing I like is his yak ability. If you look simply at yak in general, you're not going to see a most impressive number. You're going to see about like 6.5 yards after catch per reception, which isn't a astonishing number. But I wanted to look specifically at where he got the football, because Ja'Cory Brooks is a player that you're throwing to in contested situations a lot because of his big frame and his big size. When you're in a contested catch situation, you're likely not going to be running after that catch. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're likely to catch that ball, fall down. But with him, I wanted to see, what does he do after screens? He averages almost 11 yards after the catch on his catches behind the line of scrimmage. So all his screen plays, he's just monstrous. He's able to make quick cuts, smooth, get the football, and just go. And I love to see that. You can use him downfield. You could use him over the middle in those big body contested catch situations, and you could put him in the screen game. You can get really, really creative with him, even though he's kind of slotted as just simply just an X receiver. And I love to see that analytically for him. Those are a few of the positive things that I just love to see from Ja'Cory Brooks overall.
It's awesome because he's like glidey and shifty for his size. And it's nice to see him just kind of like a dancer almost, kind of, it's really nice to watch him be doing his thing in the field. Just he's like shifting away from people, faster cornerbacks than him. He's shifting away and making these plays. Like, how did he do that? And to see big guys do that is absolutely crazy. JT, tell me some positives about Ja'Cory Brooks too.
Yeah, to jump on what Hutch said, the yak ability for a guy that doesn't have burner speed is pretty good for him. It's kind of impressive. A guy that like gets yards after catch, even though he doesn't have that breakaway speed. I thought I was impressed by that with him. He's got really strong hands. I like as a guy with a big frame, and this is to me, if a guy's not getting a lot of separation because he doesn't have great speed, I want a guy that has strong hands and can pluck the ball away from the other guy and use his size. I think he uses his size. And I have to tell you, one of my absolute biggest pet peeves of all time is when guys are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", and they let 5'9" DBs play with them because they don't use their size. They don't catch at the catch point. They catch low. They let those guys get their hands in there and knock balls away because they don't play as big as they are. I think he plays big, which I like. I think he goes out and gets the ball, plucks the ball out of the air, which is something really impressive because sometimes you get those big guys and they're pad catchers. They're waiting, letting it get in their pads, catch it that way instead of using their hands and using their size advantage. I think he uses that, which I think helps the fact that he's not as fast. He doesn't have to create as much separation because he can use his body to create separation from the defender. So that's one of my favorite things about him. I think teams are going to like him, and this is where I think he can jump up the draft. I think he can play special teams and do some different things there as well.
Yeah.
So I think whenever you're a wide receiver that can also play special teams, you can make yourself a 6th round guy to a 4th round guy because teams are like, oh, I can see the potential at wideout, but he's going to help us as a rookie. He's going to help us as a second-year guy on special teams, and he can still be that 4th wide receiver that can make his way into a 3rd or 2nd wide receiver in his team. So I think that's a super underrated trait for wide receivers because, people don't think about it. They don't think about, oh, can he run down the field and make a tackle on a punt? Can he cover? Can he do those things? I think he can. He also can kick and punt return, even without elite speed. I think he's solid at those things. Again, with the way the NFL is set up right now, it's not like everybody puts back their burners and those guys just break huge runs, huge kick returns, or punt returns. It's not the way it is anymore. So a guy that can get solid yards, be good. I think he can help out in that situation. So I like him there a lot too. The fact that he's an X receiver with not a bunch of true X's in this class, I think is important. I think there's going to be some teams that go, hey, we have a really nice slot. We have a nice Z. We really need an X guy. We need an X guy. And that's where I think he can make his way into a lineup on some teams where you might look at who they have and be like, oh, how's he going to fit in that team? I think that's where he's going to make some room. So I like that. I think he's got raw talent. By the 5-star recruit, I think he's got raw talent. He gets with the right coaching staff, the right wide receiver coach. I think they can mold this guy. I think to me, if I'm taking a shot on a wide receiver, 3rd, 4th, 5th round in the draft, I want a guy go, oh, this guy, I can see he hasn't maxed out yet. He's not as good as he could be. I think he's a guy who's not as good as he could be yet. And so I think there's going to see teams that are going to be like, man, I like the potential. I think we can work with this guy. And we know how NFL coaches are, right? Every NFL coach thinks they can fix everybody. They think they can make everybody better. So I think you're going to see some coaches going to look at this guy and be like, dude, I could do something with this guy. He has not hit it yet. So there's a lot of things I think I like about Ja'Cory Brooks. A lot of things.
Yeah, he's definitely likable. It's I like watching a lot of his film. That injury was huge because anytime these guys are gaining momentum and they're setting their stage, and then they have these I don't want to say small injuries, but things like that just have setbacks. It's terrible. It's around a roll, man. These guys, you can see them like blossoming.
Especially for like a college kid, you only got 3-4 years usually.
Right.
Like you don't have much time. Like in the NFL, like you might have a bit longer of a career. Injuries suck, but you might be able to bounce back and still have time. We've seen plenty of players have awful injuries and still able to come back and have good careers. But in college, it's like if you miss a whole season, like that's like 25% of your college career. It sucks for him. But he was still able to come back, transfer to Louisville, and put up a productive season. So it was great to see that comeback from him too. That's another part of it. And I love JT, you're bringing up with the special teams. That's something I did not remember to mention. The special teams work is excellent because not only like it keeps you around. You know, we talk about like our world, like applying for a job, trying to work your way into a company. Being versatile is really helpful. Being able to do different things is really helpful. Being able to work on special teams is going to keep him around. And that gives him the opportunity to work with coaches and develop into a better receiver and potentially make his way into being a primary receiver on the team. And then he doesn't have to do special teams. But the fact that he does have the ability to work on special teams, do punt returns, do kick returns, it keeps him around and keeps giving him opportunities. And that's just so fantastic.
We just talked about Ted McMillan yesterday about how he blocked 4 or 5 punts, and things
like
that.
Oh, no, we were talking about Ricky White. Ricky White.
John. Oh, yeah, no, yeah, yep. You're right.
And it's like, holy cow, this guy's like, oh yeah, I don't know why I said Ted McMillan, but
but when without you bring that up, but that I was gonna say, I think they're both similar in that they're both guys who can play special teams, and I think they could both move up. I think there's a lot of people that have them like maybe 5th, 6th round. I think both these guys, Ricky White and Jacory, I think they can both move up because of that special teams ability. And I also think both of those guys have it maxed out as wide receivers. So I think teams are going to see like, man, if we can get work out of them as a rookie, second year guy, maybe fourth wide receiver work early with a chance to move up, maybe an injury happens, they work their way in to, more sets. Both of these guys are guys I'm going to be really have an eye on late in drafts, like to see where they go in the actual real NFL draft. But they're guys I'm definitely going to be looking at to take a flyer on in fantasy football drafts. Or if I don't get them and they don't get drafted, they're going to be the first guys I'm looking at free agency, first waiver wire run. Let me pick up one of those guys and stash them and see what they can do.
Hutch, we've been praising this boy.
Yeah.
We got to talk negatives, though. That's part of the show. We got to say some things that what's wrong. What are we looking for? What are the red flags? What are the things that like, hey, you should, temper your expectations a little bit because of this? What are the thises?
So one thing about him on the film side that I see, it's similar to how I felt about Quentin Johnston. I think I do like Jacory Brooks better as a prospect than Quentin Johnston, but one thing I see similar between those two is height, speed, the ability to, get up and make plays. Quentin Johnston had that less than Brooks, but both to me have limited route trees and they're not really technical route runners. They are dependent on raw athleticism and raw size to get open. That's what you see with the Jacory Brooks a lot. You don't see him making excellent cuts. You don't see him using excellent footwork. He usually is very sloppy with his extra steps. And in the NFL, you might be able to get away with that a couple times if you're athletic and if you're big, but not very often. In college, you can do it, but in the NFL, DBs are going to be all over that. One thing specifically that I see that's really problematic is the way his head and shoulders move on his breaks. And I'll explain that in a second. When you're a wide receiver, right, and you are running a route, the first thing you want to do is you got to sell a vertical route. That's always what you're doing when you start your route. Heads down, shoulders down, you are sprinting down the field. You got to sell that vertical route because it keeps the DBs on their heels, and then they don't know when you're going to break. And the thing is, I see a lot of wide receivers do this, and it causes problems. They lift their head and their shoulders up like they're going to make a break, and then immediately a DB knows, oh, you're about to make a break. Jacory Brooks does that on a too much of a regular basis. He does that all the time. I saw in his film a lot where he's lifting his head and his shoulders. He does his little cut and then he moves and DB's on him because the DB instantly knows that dude's making a cut. Because if he was running downfield, he'd be heads down, shoulders down, sprinting. And Jacory Brooks just gives DBs such easy access to know when he's going to make a cut. And the NFL, that's going to be such a huge problem. DBs are going to be all over that. That's one thing he has to fix. And these problems, all coachable. Because he has the natural talent. He has the athleticism. He has the talent. He has the ability. These small things, though, are things that are going to be need to fix if he wants to take it to the next level. Because if he comes in the NFL the way he is and doesn't grow, he's probably going to be another Quentin Johnston, where he's good at downfield situations. He's good every once in a while for NFL offense. But for fantasy, we're not really valuing him very highly. But if he's able to get a more expanded route tree, do a little bit better with his footwork, be more efficient there, and also not let DBs know when he's making his breaks, he's going to be a very, very dangerous wide receiver in this league. But that's the negative thing on film that I see. He has to be able to fix that. And then on paper, analytically, I mean, one, he's 23 years of age. I mean, that's not really super analytical, but 23 years of age coming out of college, that's usually a bit of red flag seeing that older player because he's a 23-year-old at a smaller school, and he put up 1,000 yards against like 20-year-olds, like he's putting up those kind of okay numbers, solid numbers against guys that are a lot younger than him. So usually at 23 years of age is a bad sign, unless you're a quarterback, because then that shows you have a lot of experience in the game. But for a receiver or running back, 23 years of age is something we don't usually want to see. And then also inconsistent production as well. We never saw a massive season. We saw 1,000 yards at Louisville, but that's against some really weak competition. When you look at the schedule, he's only playing against a couple ranked teams. Like, he's not playing against many amazing rosters there when in Louisville, and in Alabama, he never put up a monstrous season either. He had some flashes, but nothing truly special. So that inconsistent production is something to look for as well. But those are a couple negatives that I see with Ja'Cory Brooks.
JT?
Yeah, to go along with that, I think the injury history is a concern.
Yeah, the injury history
teams
as well.
are going to be like, I think they're just going to be like, oh, can this guy stay healthy? Is it worth it? Do we want to, if he gets hurt early, is he a guy that we think's talented enough to let recover from the injury? Or is like, all right, we're cutting this guy immediately? Because if he gets hurt right away, somebody's going to be like, oh, we spent a 4th round pick on him and he's already hurt like that. So that's the one thing. Injury, I think, is a big one. The 40 time is going to be real interesting, what he runs at like pro day and stuff, because if you watch the film, and I know there's guys that play like this, there's guys that play way faster than their 40 time shows.
Brooks is
when you watch
guys.
him on the field, he doesn't look like a guy that runs a 4.65. I mean, he's not blazing, but he doesn't look that slow. So the question is he a guy, can he figure out how to do that? Because if he can't figure out how to look a little bit faster, like real time, like you said, Hutch, if NFL defensive backs don't think you have any chance to get by them on a vertical route, you're cooked. You're cooked, because they will sit on every comeback, every slant, every out route, and then you're just going to set your quarterback up to throw picks, because those DBs are going to be all over it. So he's got to show that he can at least bring that vertical route and challenge DBs to get deep, because if he doesn't challenge them to get deep, it's really going to put his quarterback in a bad position, and the teams are going to be like, because I like the fact that he can catch, like we said, like he can catch with the guy on him. But you don't want those guys guessing exactly what you're going to do, because they don't think you're ever going to go deep, and then they're just setting them up for turnovers. So those are two of the bigger knocks, I think, on him. And again, like Hutch said, I think age factor, the fact that he's been around long enough. I know things are a little bit different with the NIL deal. Some guys are staying longer just because they're getting paid to stay longer. Yeah. So those guys, I don't fault as much, because I'm like, oh, if I was a running back and I got an extra $3 million to stay another year, I'm not going to like rip them that they didn't come out early. But a guy like this, that's like, he's been injured, he's going around. And then I think anytime you have a guy that goes to a big time program and then goes to a smaller program and sees some success, but not a lot of success, I think that's always a little bit of a ding on people. They're like, oh, he went to a place that's not quite as good. He was okay. Because you expect those guys to then go to a smaller place and dominate. And if they don't, I think that's always a little bit of a ding on them personally. So those are the things I think are a little bit interesting on them. I actually think the Quentin Johnson comp is really good. I think he's better at going up, because Quentin Johnson drives me crazy that he doesn't go up and get the ball. He doesn't play as big as it. I think Brooks is better about playing his size, but I think you're right on some of those comps about how they run routes, how they do some things. I think they do kind of remind me a little bit of that. For me, personally, I would love to take a Ja'Cory Brooks in the 4th round over Quentin Johnson in the 1st round. Value-wise, value-wise for me, if I'm taking a shot, I would have much rather as a team do that. But I mean, I guess, maybe that's a little bit hindsight looking back, but John knows I was not a huge Quentin Johnson guy. We had him on a couple C2C teams. I was like, we got to trade him immediately. As soon as he got drafted in the 1st round, I was like, John, trade him. I'm like, trade him. As soon as he got drafted in the 1st round, I was like, we got to get something out of him, because I just don't love it. So, but like I said, I think he could be that type of player. But here's the thing. If you look at the value, take a Quentin Johnson season, what he did this year as a 1st round pick. Now take Ja'Cory Brooks, if he does that same type of season for somebody else next year as a 4th round or a 5th round pick. Big difference. People are like, oh, that's a great season, as opposed to like, oh, that's a huge disappointment. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
to me, I think you're getting there, but he's a guy. Like I said, I always like, and I say it all the time. I feel like I'm repeating myself constantly. I always want to go with talent. I want to go with talent over anything else. I want to say, hey, maybe they can get over their flaws. They can get better. Injuries are one thing, but I want to go with talent. I think Ja'Cory Brooks has talent. And I think you see that by his 5-star high school tape. You see it in flashes in college. Can he put it all together? That's the big question.
I mean, he's 23. He's not Nick Nash, like 28 years old kind of thing. You know, I mean, 23 is
23. Yeah,
it's old, but it's not like, you know, it's you want to see 19 or 20. You know, 23 is. There's a lot. There's a couple of.
But you got to see. Here's the thing. I always look at it too. Is like obviously you want the younger guys, so you want the longer career. But I also think if you're taking a guy in like the 4th, 5th round, in your mind as a GM, you got to think I need 4 good years out of this guy. Like 4, maybe 5 good years is what you're thinking with a guy that late. If you can get that out of him, you can get him into his late 20s, early 30s, and then I think you're happy.
Yeah.
You know, obviously you need long term out of 1st, 2nd round guys, but if you're getting a guy a little later, I think these GMs look at those guys and go, hey, if I get 4 good years, 5 good years, I crushed it with this kid.
Yeah, a second contract being able to be on the books is super important for a GM, absolutely, for sure. So, JT. So what's some Hutch? Tell me about some intangibles you like outside of the good, the bad, the ugly kind of stuff like that. What is something that like a lot of people don't know about Ja'Cory Brooks?
Honestly, I was trying to do a lot of search on Ja'Cory Brooks to see if he had anything in his past. There's honestly not much drama with him. He's, there's nothing going on with him, man. He just had a pretty normal childhood. He didn't do anything crazy in his childhood. There was no Jalen Carter situation where he was driving recklessly. There's none of that. There's no history with him. He seems just like I don't want to say like an average dude. Obviously, he's going to go to the NFL. He's not an average guy, but he just seems like a regular good guy. There doesn't seem like anything behind him. And one intangible about him, everyone's going to say he's a track guy. And it's like he had track in high school. He did that a lot along with playing football, but I wanted to bring to light how good he was. I mean, throughout his last 2 high school years, he was like one of the top track runners in Florida. And Florida's got a lot of athletes. Florida's got a lot of athletes down there, man. They crank out some fast kids. And he was consistently one of the best track stars in Florida for a 2-year stretch. That he was constantly in state championships. He even he traveled multiple times to a Midwest wide championship. He placed very highly in those championships, in those tournaments. He did absolutely phenomenal. It just goes to show how fast he really is. And also back to the speed conversation too. I wanted to mention earlier, there's a reason Louisville kept using him in the screen game. You don't use a guy in the screen game if he's slow and not able to make some yak, dude. This dude can really run. I think he's going to have a more impressive 40 than people are expecting. I'm expecting inside the 4.4s. I think he's going to get sub 4.5. I think he's going to get there. He looks that kind of speed on film to me.
Absolutely awesome, man. Absolutely. What have you been seeing as far as like projections from some of the so-called quote unquote like draft experts and stuff like that? And then where do you have him at? And what team do you want him to go to?
So I was looking at, a lot of like the draft profile sites, Player Profiler, NFL Draft Buzz, and the NFL site, things like that. And I was looking at where like some people have him going. I was looking at some things on Twitter as well. Some people have posted about him a little bit. The general consensus is like he's going day 3. It's like round 4 or 5. Like that's kind of where the range is for him. I've seen round 4, round 5. I've seen a couple people hint that he could go day 2. I think he would need a good combine to go day 2. If he has a poor combine, he is going to be stuck on day 3. But I think he's going to have an impressive combine. I think he's going to do some things that people are not expecting. And I think he's going to be able to get himself at least in the conversation for round 2 or 3. And somewhere that I think where I would love him to be. I think, honestly, 2 teams that I would really like. One, I think this is a good projection too. I think the Dallas Cowboys would be a solid spot. Obviously, they're in the conversation for Travis Hunter at the top of the draft. I wouldn't be surprised if they went that direction. But if they are looking a receiver later in the draft to help out CeeDee Lamb, give the Cowboys a big, tall outside receiver to distract defenses from CeeDee Lamb, who works a lot on the inside and on the outside. that is going to be very, very, very fun because you have Ja'Cory Brooks who will threaten DBs downfield, who would take safeties, and that's just going to open up a lot for CeeDee Lamb on the underneath and over the middle and in the slot. I think that'll be really helpful for him. And then another one, I would love to see him in Denver too. I mean, Bo Nix needs some receivers. I think Denver will likely take someone higher than day 3 or day 2. I think they might take someone in the first round, depending on the future of Courtland Sutton and where he goes. He's a potential trade candidate or a cut candidate. His contract is a little confusing. He is a free agent in 2026 as well. So even if he's kept this year, next year, at nearly 30 years of age, I expect him to be gone from Denver. They're going to need somebody for the future. And I give Bo Nix a tall, fast, deep threat. We know Bo Nix is not afraid to throw the football downfield. I think that would be an excellent pairing there in Denver. So those are a couple teams I would really like to see Ja'Cory Brooks land to. But I think they're like, the thing is we're probably going to see him go late day 2, early day 3. There are probably a lot of teams that are going to take him that are like, hey, maybe he's something, maybe he's not. And if he proves himself, he'll work his way into a starting role.
JT, what about you? What do you, as far as draft capital is concerned, as far as team you want to go to, all that kind of stuff? Tell me about some draft information you have.
Yeah, so I think, I brought it up earlier, but high-end kid, like Hutch said, from Florida, went to IMG Academy, one of the top schools in the country for football. You don't go to IMG unless you're really good. I mean, you have to, like, it's a football factory. You have to be really good to go there. He went there, really high-end recruit. I think people care about that more than people realize. He was, depending on what ranking system you looked at in high school, he was top 10 in every ranking system in the nation. Like, so he's a high-end guy in a lot of spots. So I think you're going to see people go, hey, things didn't work out exactly in college the way he probably wanted to. The injuries were a factor, this and that. But people are going to go, he has legit ability. And they're going to take a swing on that guy over a guy who overachieved in college. Personally, that's just what I've seen over the years, what I know about NFL GMs, what I know about those guys. They would rather take a guy that they know has been high end, who maybe hasn't lived up to the expectations, over a guy who way, way overachieved in a lot of circumstances. I know it's frustrating for people like, oh, I'll take that guy that had 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns and was a stud for 3 years at whatever school. They're gonna be like, this guy, athlete-wise, he's a pure athlete. So, again, I think that is going to factor in for some teams. I think there's going to be some teams that go, let's take a shot on him. Let's take a chance. They don't want to miss on him. So I think that's going to push them up draft boards. I also think the fact that this draft is not, I think there's a lot of guys that are similar in the wide receiver group. So I think you have your top tier 1, which everybody's pretty clear about. I think you have your like tier 2 that most people kind of know who's in there. I think it's pretty wide open after that. So, I see him ranked for a lot of people between like wide receiver 20 and 25 in this class. After you get outside of wide receiver 10, I think it starts becoming a lot of jumbled of like, oh, who do you prefer and why do you prefer him? Is he a slot? Is he an X? Is he a Z? And what you want to use him for on your team. So I think I think a guy like Ja'Cory Brooks could jump way up because the team's like, oh, we want a pure X. We love the profile. He maybe hasn't performed, but we could see him working on our team. So he's a guy that I could see easily jumping up some boards and falling on others because people are just like, man, yeah, he was a high recruit, but he never really did anything with it. He's injured a lot. We just don't want to take the chance. But there's going to be somebody that's going to want to take the chance. So to me, I always say it, like I said, because I feel like I say it all the time. I'm going with talent. I want guys that I know that are talented. He's a talented guy. He's a talented athlete. I think, like Hutch said, I think the 40 number is going to be better than people expect. I know they're saying it's about 4.65, but he plays way faster than that. He just does. He doesn't look that slow on tape. So that would be interesting to see. And if he comes out and he runs a really solid number, say he even runs like a 4.52, I think teams are going to be like, okay, we're good. we're good with it, So unless he just runs a terrible slow, like insanely like 4.7 something, which I don't think he would. Some teams take that into consideration more than others. That's all I'll say. Some teams are heavy on that, but X wide receiver, I think people are. That's the one wide receiver spot that people are not as worried about how fast you are. I think.
Yeah, right.
Compared to
And you
other
guys, I'm going to kind of morph into both.
They don't.
I'm going to morph something that both of you guys said as far as like the Cowboys and talent, and Cowboys. They have nothing. That you're looking at. They have like Devontae Turpin, Brandon Cooks is gone probably. Jalen Tolbert. They tried bringing in Jonathan Mingo. Ryan Flournoy was more of an athlete than he is a wide receiver kind of thing. Like, I mean, a spot like that with a good receiver who's underrated. If he goes there somewhere like Dallas, I mean, Hutch, you nailed it on the head. Somewhere like Dallas would be an absolute perfect landing spot for a guy like that because they're desperate for a playmaker and a good receiver, and that's what Jalen, that's what he is. So I'm super happy about that, Ja'Cory Brooks. I'm super happy about that that you mentioned that or thought about that because I mean it couldn't be more of a perfect match as far as that goes. So, what we had talked about the Cowboys as far as that goes. Was there anything that somebody else doesn't know? I mean, we kind of talked. We did everything, but I just want to give you like a final kind of like what's something that maybe that somebody else doesn't know, or you just want to add to the icing on the cake of Ja'Cory Brooks.
Yeah, if you follow Ja'Cory Brooks' career, you can see that he is a clutch playmaker. Like I mentioned the Iron Bowl in college. When you look at his high school, he played at Booker T. Washington. He led them to a 2019 title, a state title in 2019 in Florida. He had 2 touchdowns in the title game. That is excellent. And when you look at the game, he played excellently, had amazing catches left and right. But throughout the tournament, you look at the stats. I mean, I wasn't able to find a lot of film on the game, so I couldn't really see his catches. But when you look at the stats, it's like consistently 100 plus yards, 100 plus yards, 50 plus yards, 70 plus yards. Like he's having game after game after game after game in huge moments. And you watch on film in college at Louisville, consistently there on third down. He's getting a lot of targets on third down to make those first down conversions, even if it's contested, even if it's in weird situations. He gets a ton of red zone looks. He is there when the big play needs to happen. When you need a big play, you keep looking towards him, and he came through a lot throughout his entire career. He's always been not just a big play guy where he makes the big downfield play, but a big play guy in a sense where it's clutch. You need something to happen. You need to make progress. You need to make progress. You need to make a play here. Ja'Cory Brooks is someone you look for to give him the football and give him an opportunity.
Woohoo! Awesome. Outstanding. Love it. JT, anything to add here, or he pretty much summed everything up, right?
As a perfect sum up by Hutch there. I totally agree.
Absolutely awesome. Hutch, you know what? I think I forgot to kind of give you the introduction, Mike, in the beginning of the show. So on the way out here, can you tell everybody the awesomeness that is Hutchinson Brown?
Oh, thank you, man. I mean, y'all can follow me on Twitter, @HutchinsonB_FF, and you can find all my work at Football Guys. I do a lot of work over there for their social media sites, for their articles, and also a little bit behind the scenes as well. I also edit the DLF Dynasty podcast. But yeah, you can find everything on Twitter @HutchinsonB_FF. You can always DM me with fantasy ball questions. I love answering them.
So when do you turn 21 in Canton? When does that happen? When does the 21-year-old Hutch go to Canton?
I'm 18 now, and my birthday is before August. It's in July. So next year at the Expo, I'll be 19. Then the year after, I'll be 20. So I still have 2 more years of not being.
He's got a couple years, John, before he can be hanging with John McGlynn. Couple more years before hanging with John McGlynn.
When are these car bombs gonna start flowing, boy? That's what I'm at. That's all I want to know.
Hey, John, don't be trying to kill kids early, man. Jeez, going right on with the car bombs.
Very good, very good. All right, JT, where can everybody find you at, man? Everybody already knows, but have at it again.
Yeah, just give me at JT Orange, all my stuff over there. DLF, you can find all my rookie spotlights, the early stuff before the draft, pre-draft, after the draft. If you're an IDP guy, IDP rankings over there, Devi rankings as well on DLF. Other than that, stick with us on Fantasy and Frames. Hockey show up after this around the ice here on Fantasy Frames. Me and my buddy Toast bringing you all the hockey action, betting action, fantasy hockey, all that good jazz. Thank you for Fantasy and Frames for bringing us on our hockey show this year. We're pumped to be here. And go subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Hit the notification button so you know when there's all these 87 million shows we have on Fantasy and Freeze, you know when they're on. So check it out. We're going to bring you more all this rookie stuff. My favorite time of year, redraft. I love the draft. I love talking sleepers. I love talking all these college guys. So pumped about all this. So, and Hutch, thanks for seeing. I haven't seen you in a while. Saw you 2 years ago at the expo, and then you've been on the Stew with JT Brew. Good to have you on a show with me and John here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys sending out the invite. It was really fun being on the show with y'all.
John McGlynn 75 on X, Dynasty Evaluation and Fantasy and Frames. That's where we'll be. Thanks for joining in, Hutch. Thank you one more time. Thanks for making the Dynasty Evaluation show awesome. You did a great job, man. You overextended your A+ effort, brother. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
Thanks for coming on, man. Say hi to all the guys with fantasy or the football guys for me. We got some a lot of good news over there. All right, talk to you later.